Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore and I'm just one of your hosts on this show. But the other host, her name is Maria Casillas, and she's here as well. So Maria, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Good. So before we get into the topic that we want to talk about today, this was actually a topic that was requested to us from a former listener. We had kind of touched on it a little bit in the past, and he was like, I really want to know more about that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. So we're going to dive right into that, and we're going to kind of expand on it a little bit too. But before we get into all that, I do want to just give you guys a friendly reminder that we do have a Facebook group. And this is actually where we found out about this person who wanted to learn more about this. So that Facebook group is called New Money Habits Financial Coaches. Free to join. But we would really, really love to see you there. You know, like we love to interact with people who listen to this show, hear what gives them value, what they're wanting out of this show, and also just to be there to walk alongside with them so that they can grow their practice, get started with their practice, and just support them throughout the entire thing, you know, celebrate with them throughout the entire thing. So hop in there. It's called New Money Habits Financial Coaches. And of course, too, if you've also been listening to the show for a while and you've been enjoying it, one of the ways that really, really helps us, reach more people is if you were to either leave a rating on the show, leave a review on the show, or share the show. That's kind of like our fee. You know, like we talk about this fee every now and then, but, you know, there's no ads. We don't get paid for this. We don't, shove down Colgate toothpaste down your throat in the middle of the show or something like that. I just advertise for them, but you're welcome, Colgate. But we don't do that kind of stuff, right? The only thing we ask is that you share the show and that you leave a review. That's basically it. So that would be very helpful to us. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we're going to step right into our topic of discussion. Maria, does that sound good to you?
That sounds incredible. Looking forward to it.
Okay, awesome. So the topic of discussion came up because I had talked about, I believe it was about morning routines, right?
It was, yep.
Okay, yeah. So we did an episode on morning routines, a few weeks or a few months back. And one of the things that I said that I do is a very short and simple visualization exercise. And one of the people who were listening were like, I want to know what this looks like. And I was like, okay, fine.
I twisted his arm for you guys, just so you know.
Yep. So I will preface this, and I'll say that this is not groundbreaking stuff. It's not anything like super complex. It's actually very simple. There's not a lot to it, and it doesn't take a lot of time either. But I did think that, talking about this could probably be like a 5-minute episode, right? And I was like, how can we make this more for people than just 5 minutes?
Before you go there, though,
okay, go ahead, Maria.
We just talked last week about how sometimes those simplest things, when overlooked, end up creating the biggest problems for us. So
it's true.
No more apologizing for the simplicity of what you're about to share. It's super important. It worked well for you, and now we're going to share it with others. All right.
Yes.
So now that I twisted his arm and slapped his wrist all in one episode.
That's right.
Go on.
But we are also going to talk about something that you could do with your clients as well.
Yes.
Which is something I've been doing recently, and it's actually created a lot of really cool results for people. So we're going to kind of dive into both of those. So I'll start with the visualization exercise first and foremost. Okay, so this visualization exercise, basically what it is it's a way for me to basically speak what I want to have happen in my life in a way that it's already happening, right? So I'm basically like trying to program my brain to move away from hoping and feeling like that would be nice, but maybe I won't. And instead to almost like train it to think like, hey, like this is an inevitable thing. Like this is going to happen because it's already happened to me. Right. And you know, you might listen to that and you might be like, yeah, that totally works. Or you might be listening to this and you're like, this is some frou-frou hippie stuff. Like, like, you know what I mean?
And in both instances, you're probably a little bit right.
Yeah. I do think that, you know, there is truth to it, but it is also like, it's kind of frou-frou in a way. But I like it. It works for me, and maybe it'll work for you. So step number 1, first and foremost, you need to get into like a good zone. So you can't do this with like distractions. You know, you need to be ideally alone, you know, whether it be in a room with the door shut or whatever, but, you know, just try and remove the distractions. And I also have found that throwing on some like really relaxing, non-distractive music is very, very helpful too. So what I'll do is I'll put in my AirPods and just listen to some music. And I actually will share some music with you right now to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second here. Oh, actually, 1 second here. All right, can you hear this okay?
Yep.
So as you can see, this is just really, really chill music.
It's like what you'd hear when you go to a spa.
Yeah, exactly. It's not distracting at all. There's no words. If you're on Spotify, this playlist is awesome. It's called Peaceful Meditation. It's like 12 hours long.
But you just don't have to meditate for 12 hours.
Right. But getting into a good state with music like this is very, very important. So that's step number 1. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing that. But just getting yourself into a good place. That's very, very important. And then really the way that I kind of do this exercise is I just pick different categories in my life. So, you know, a category might be business. It might be my family. It might be my health. It might be financial goals. It might be, you know, a kind of house that I want to live in. You know, my faith, you know, lots of different areas, right? And I said that, you know, you kind of speak into things as if it's already currently happening, right? So maybe with my business, I would say something along the lines of like, my business is flourishing. I have several clients in my group program, you know, 10 to 15 at a time, and they're all crushing it. They're all making a lot of really good progress. And it's very fulfilling for me. And because of that, and because of the impact that I've been able to make, and because of the amount of people that I am helping, my business is doing $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And you know, because of that, my family is able to live in our dream house. We have our dream house. It has 5 bedrooms, has the wraparound porch, it has the backyard with the pond and the water slide. You know, 20 acres of land. You know, I have those things, and on top of that too, I also have several investment properties. I have an investment empire of investment properties. I have 15 to 20 investment properties that are all taken care of, and they're cash flowing enough so that my wife doesn't have to work. My wife's not working anymore. We're self-sustainable in those regards. And on top of this rental property empire, I also have my own lake house. I have my lake house. I have my own boat. I have the jet ski. And at that lake house, I'm able to build so many memories with my family. Take him out on the boat, teach my boy how to fish. He just caught his first bass, and he loved it. Largemouth bass. And we take those family trips, and we also invite our other family too, and we have those cookouts. And once a year, I do a client retreat at the lake house for anyone who wants to come. But it's just a weekend trip, all expenses paid as far as food, lodging, stuff like that. The only thing they have to pay for is gas. But just to give back to my clients and to show them they're appreciated, and to also inspire them to where if they too follow, these financial principles, that they can get to a place like this as well. My health, I'm 100 pounds down from where I started, and I'm feeling so confident. I'm 100% a positive role model for my kids in regards to my health. I feel like I can go to the beach and I don't have to worry. I feel like my mental clarity is at its all-time high. And with being that good role model of my kids, not just with my health, but also my business and my finances, I'm really able to lean into them and help them grow into amazing people. And my daughter is a successful artist or a successful businesswoman, and she's doing great. She found herself a great man, takes care of her, but also allows her to take care of herself. And my son, he's better than I ever could be. And he is truly carrying on the legacy that starts with me. And a huge part of that all happening is through the strength and unity of my marriage with my wife. And we have the best relationship. Yes, we have our ups and downs, but it's always rooted in truth, always rooted in support, always leaning onto each other, even when it's hard to. But we're going into our 40s and 50s and 60s stronger in every decade than the one before. Something like that. And you'll notice that with all of that kind of stuff, I wasn't speaking about how it would be nice if, or my goal is this. I was speaking of these things as if they were currently happening. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the power behind this visualization process. And you can kind of put the things together to where if you were to speak in that kind of manner, and you also put the music on, and you're in an environment with no distractions, cup of coffee in hand, that it can be very powerful. I did a lot of talking. I'm going to go ahead and shut up. Maria?
No, I'm really glad that you did. Couple things. One, you just said it can be really powerful, and I'm going to say it actually was really powerful. I heard you choking up a little bit towards the end of that. Mm-hmm. And I think, I just think that's a great testimony to who you are and what you're sharing with our listeners. But this is something I observed, and I don't know if you did this on purpose. I don't know if it's just because of where my mind is that I observed it, but I'm going to share it with you, and you can take it and do what you will. When you first started out, a lot of what you were visualizing was it was stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about the size of the house, the amount of acres, the toys that you were going to have, right? It was more surface. It was stuff. It was like kind of like we talked about last episode. It was more of like what society expects you to want.
Mm-hmm.
And I was waiting, and man, did you finally, you broke through that.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to the relationships and what it was going to mean and the legacy that it was going to create. That is where it became so powerful and, if I may, so beautiful. So I encourage anybody who is listening, if you do this for 30 seconds and you find yourself saying all the things that you think everyone's supposed to want, keep going, because man, Cody did get to that heart, and that is where it became so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's you start off that way. You know, I think that's really natural for people, is that like you think about the stuff or, you know, the things that you can kind of measure, you know what I mean? But then, you know, you say that stuff and you're like, yep, that's nice. But then you kind of get yourself warmed up and you're like, I want more. I want more.
Well, and what purpose does that stuff serve?
Right, exactly.
Right?
And you start digging, and then you really start to dig in and to actually get to the things that are actually important to you. So that's why when I first started doing this, I set myself a rule. I said, I'm going to do it for 10 minutes no matter what, at least, right? My first time doing it, I was like 2 minutes in, and I was like, I don't know what else to talk about, kind of thing. And I found myself like kind of going in circles. But because I told myself I'm doing this for 10 minutes, it forced me to dig deeper. And I'm glad that I did that, because it allowed me to start getting into that kind of stuff. And just so you guys know,
deeper.
Yeah. And just so you know, every time I do this, every morning, it goes through that same cycle. I always start with the stuff or the measurables. Not because I'm like, all right, this is just what I'm doing. It's a formula. No, it's because it's just natural human behavior. You know, like that's just how we kind of start on things.
Yep. And I actually really think that you use the M word, which is fantastic. It's measurable. And I think that's why it's easier to go there, because we can know when we have arrived. It's a lot harder to know when we have arrived when we're talking about things like, my son is doing wonderful things and is carrying on the legacy that I started. Like it's beautiful, but it's really hard to measure. And so, you know, as that, like you said, that human tendency is to want to put something out there that we can not just measure, but know when we've gotten where we said we were going to go. So I think that that's probably where some of that actually comes from. And one thing I really did love about that was, even though you went measurable, it was big. It was, you know, you didn't allow yourself to stop because it didn't seem possible. I know we talked last week about, you know, values, and I've told you that that's kind of where my heart is at. And so when I was hearing some of the stuff, if you will, in the beginning, I was asking myself, now this was your visualization, not mine, but I was there with you. I was like, I'm going to just be right. I was visualizing all the stuff you talked about. In fact, you might have seen / heard me chuckle when you talked about the pond. And I'm like, well, he's for real. Like, he knows. I mean, I was waiting for you to talk about how many ducks were in the pond.
Right.
you have visualized this. I love it. And I asked myself, like, what of these things are aligned with my values? And I mentioned last time that for me, it's faith, family, and future. And so much of what you said in the beginning truly became part of faith, family, future once you started going into the relationships and how all of those, you know, accomplishments, those measurable accomplishments would then serve your faith, family, future, even though those are my values, not the ones you've said. So, but yeah, I think that was really great. And you went beyond 5 minutes. Look, we're already at almost 20 minutes in.
I know.
And you thought this was going to be such a short one. Do we still have time? I think we do. We promised them we'd give it to them. So let's give them the second half of this. It won't be a full 20 more minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I actually said this in our last episode that we did when we talked about, being aligned and finding, you kind of walked people through how to understand themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I said, and hey, like if you had a good experience with that, like see how you can kind of make that a part of your coaching. Yes. You can do this with your coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you find power in this, which I have a hunch that you will when you start doing this, could you imagine if you could also do this for your clients, what they're trying to achieve, and having them really visualize these things as if it's currently happening? Mm-hmm. That can be really powerful. And that might be the thing that really pushes them, really wakes them up in a way that's like, hey, like, this really matters, because like every now we have a client that kind of has some resistance, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, the resistance is there because you just haven't spoken to them in a way that really affects them. And sometimes the best way to speak to them is to allow them to pull it out of themselves. So this could be something that you could definitely do with your clients within your coaching sessions. And that's what brings me to what I was going to say is that, when people think about financial coaching, especially new coaches, they think that it's all about money, and that, it's all about like looking at the budget or, focusing on the debts or the savings or the investments or whatever it might be. It's definitely a part of it, but there's a whole other side of it. And that has to do with who the person is behind the money, right? Mm-hmm. And really diving into their hearts and into their minds. So what I've been doing recently, in particular with my group program, but also with a few one-on-one people as well, is I've been integrating guided meditations into our sessions. Now, they always have a purpose, like if I'm wanting to do an exercise with them and I feel like this meditation would be complementary to help them pull the best out of them, then, I would do that with them. So for example, I did one last night and, I threw on that music and I told them, I said, hey, close your eyes. It's going to feel weird, but just close your eyes. And they closed their eyes. And I started off with like some breathing exercises. I'm just like, okay, cool. Like take a deep breath, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe it out. And I told them like, when you're breathing in, breathe in this. And when you're breathing out, breathe out this, right? But the whole goal of this meditation was to complement an exercise to really focus on who they're becoming, right? And to not just kind of like wake up one day and hope that you just become this person one day, but to instead start working on becoming this person one day at a time, starting now, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I went through this exercise with them and we talked about the past them, we talked about the present them, and then we were just about to get to the future them or who they were becoming. And that's when I whipped out this meditation. And this is just one example. Like you can do whatever you want to do, but basically the roadmap for this meditation was that I was like, okay, let's start with some gratitude. What are you thankful for? Like it can be within this program. It can be within life, family, career, whatever. But just breathe in that gratitude, right? And I was like helping them breathe kind of stuff with that music going in the background. And then I said, I want you to focus on receiving. Breathe in what you're going to be receiving. That financial success, that debt-free, the savings, the house, the business, flourishing, the ability to pursue your passions, blah, blah, blah. Just breathe it in. And then also, what are you going to be giving, right? Breathe that in. Like, you're going to be able to give support to others and be an inspiration to others and make an impact and all this kind of stuff, right? And then I moved in, I kind of primed them a little bit, and then I moved in to focus on who they are. And I said, I really want you to picture what it feels like when you've achieved what you're wanting to achieve. Breathe that in. And who are you in that moment? What are your character qualities? How are you mentally? How are you emotionally? How do you act? And who do you need to be in order to get there? Just breathe it in. Breathe out the lies that you're not this person. Breathe in the truth that you are, right? So on and so forth. Just kind of helping them through that. And then you bring them out and you say, okay, you can open your eyes, you turn off the music, and then just ask them, what came to you? Who are you in that moment? Right? And when I asked people to open their eyes last night, there was 6 people in this group. 3 of them started wiping their eyes. And my goal is not to make people cry, but it says something when people have that kind of emotion. And I don't know if it would have been... What? Sorry, what did you say?
That's okay. I agree with you that it says something, and I'm curious, what do you think it says when they hit that spot?
I think that it says that they really needed it. And that they really probably haven't thought about that too much, and that's what coaching is really about, is that you need to help them expand their perspective, expand their hearts, expand their mind, and really step into that best version of them, not just one day, but one day at a time, right?
Yeah. I also think it means that they landed on their true why.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard the old adage, if it doesn't make you cry, it's, not a good why, or something like that. I don't know if that's really how it goes, but, but this is the reverse of that. This is not you trying to have them discover their why. And yet, if they open their eyes and they're starting to dab them a little bit, chances are they've hit on something. And if you can help them identify that, that can be the thing that keeps them going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's really important, is helping people reach a point to where they keep going, no matter what. No matter if your coaching stops with them, no matter if they had a job loss or a car breakdown, helping them reach a point to where they keep going because they have things that actually matter to them and things that are actually worth fighting for, and they're focused on who they're becoming versus what their bank account looks like.
Yep.
That's where the true change happens.
That's absolutely correct. So if you take the time to do this with them, also take the time to help them identify what those things are. If you see that they're in that moment, help them at that time to identify that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, Maria, thanks for allowing me to take the wheel here today and just kind of hit on different areas that I don't think that we've really hit on before. And have
at the request of our listeners.
What'd you say?
I said at the request of our listeners. So yes. I'm grateful that that's what people are asking for. If we put something out there, feel free to hold us to the fire and make us actually share what it is that we're doing in the background. Yeah. That's all right.
Yeah. So, alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Go and try the visualization exercise today. Don't wait. Just find 10 minutes of alone time, throw on some peaceful music, and let it rip. And, if you end up doing that and you have a good experience with it, drop it into the Facebook group and let us know how it went. I personally would really love to know that, because it's something that I really believe in. So I would actually really love to hear that. So go ahead and do that. And as always, thank you guys for listening, and we will be back next week with a brand new episode.
See you next week, guys. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.